The views expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of this television station. Please enjoy.
Welcome to the Impact and Influence Show. I'm your host, Rob Harter. And this show is all about featuring organizations and people that are trying to make a difference in their world, that are really trying to meet the needs of their community. And my two guests today are no different. So my first guest is Sarah McCarthy. She works for the Solomon Fund, which is part of the Park City Foundation. Now, this organization has been around for about a year and a half as a part of the Park City Foundation, and it's supported by Bino Solomon, hence the name the Solomon Fund. And their whole goal is to provide sports and activities, particularly for the Latino community. So we're going to talk a little bit more about why this got started, how it's been going so far, and what the impact they've seen already in the last year and a half. Then our second guest is Cheryl Fox. She's from Summit Land Conservancy. Now, if you're from Park City and Summit County, you know that saving land is a big deal around here. And she's going to talk about that. And she's done some incredible work. She's been the executive director of that organization for many years now. There's also some contention around that in that there's a big need for affordable housing here in Park City and Summit County as well. And so for some people, there seems to be a loggerheads between providing affordable housing on the one hand, but preserving land on the other. So she's going to talk about how she navigates through those two very important issues. So you're not going to want to miss that with Cheryl Fox. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, my first guest, Sarah McCarthy from the Solomon Fund. All right. Welcome back to the Impact and Influence Show. As I mentioned, Sarah McCarthy is my guest today. She's part of the Solomon Fund, which is part of the Park City Foundation. As I mentioned on my outset, this is all about sports and recreation. And so talk a little bit about how it got started and why did it get started? What's your mission?
Yes, we try to facilitate access to sports and recreation opportunities for Latino children in our community. And it really started with the vision of Bino Solomon. She's a local philanthropist in town, and she saw a huge need in the community. And basically, that need was there wasn't a lot of diversity on the soccer field. There weren't a lot of Latino kids skiing or snowboarding, and so it's maybe a little known fact in Park City, but 21% of the school district is actually Latino. And when you go out to the soccer field, there's very few Latino kids playing on the high school soccer team or in other clubs. So really there was a huge need, and what we wanted to do was give more opportunities to those kids and increase access.
Interesting. So obviously there's a big need, and obviously with the nonprofit that I lead, Christian Center of Park City, we see that as well. Why do you think it's so important that we're addressing that, and specifically sports and recreation?
Yeah, I think the vision is much bigger than just participating in sports. We would like to see integration, inclusion in the community, them feeling like there's a sense, they have a sense of belonging. And so sports is really just the vehicle that we use to create more inclusion in the community. And sports is a great way to do it because everyone likes sports. Everyone wants to play these different sports, and it's really when kids are running around on the soccer field, they're not worrying about their upbringing or any other factors. They're just having a great time. So we really think that it is important, and participating in sports has a ton of benefits. It leads to improved academic success. Also, that included a sense of belonging, and yeah, kids just like playing. So we figure it's a good way to get kids involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're doing a good job with this. I have a feeling you've run into some barriers. So like, what would you say your organization would say this is the biggest barrier we face, or the biggest barriers? What would those be?
Yeah, when we started out, we identified 3 major barriers that were limiting access for these kids. And the first one was communication and outreach. A lot of the materials weren't arriving to these families, and they weren't arriving to these families in Spanish. And so we have translated a lot of the materials. We also hold outreach events where we invite all the different organizations, BC Mark, Basin Rec, Ballet West, Summit Land Conservancy also, and we get kids registered in these different programs. So communication and outreach has been huge. We also have a Facebook page and send a newsletter out on a weekly basis. So that is really getting the information in the family's hands has been really huge. The other barrier is transportation. It's really hard to get kids to the soccer field or to, go pick up kids from school and then take them to whatever practice. And so we have been working on a few different solutions. That's honestly the one that's been the most difficult. It's been over the last year.
Right. I know I've been in conversations with the city, other nonprofits, where we've said that getting kids to and from after-school program or a recreation opportunity is the most difficult thing. Even with our public housing, our public transportation is so good around here, but it's still difficult to get kids there and obviously get them there safely. So, what do you think? Is there some light at the end of the tunnel, or are you still searching for answers?
We really focus on that K through 5, where we help any kid that wants to get involved, but we do really focus on the younger kids, because we figure once they get into the system and into the groove, they will continue to play sports. And so taking public transportation as a kindergartner can be hard. So one thing that we've really tried to do is encourage carpooling and carpool with other parents. And so that's one idea that we've had, but we're still working on that.
Sounds good, yeah.
And then the last barrier that these families face is honestly scholarships and gear. Programs are very expensive, and also we live in Park City, and skiing is very gear intensive, and mountain biking is also very gear intensive, and those are the two most popular sports. So we've been working on connecting kids to gear and getting them what they need so they can participate in these camps with their peers.
Excellent. Okay, so talk about maybe some of the success stories you've already seen. You've been around for a year and a half, whether it be individuals or organizations you've worked with.
Yeah.
What have you already seen as real successes with what you've been doing?
Yeah, we've partnered with, I think I counted the other day, it was 28 organizations. So it's
Fantastic.
quite a few organizations, and we've translated the majority of their materials, and they are getting more kids. So I think increased participation is huge, and a couple programs that really stand out in my mind are Park City Soccer Club. Last year they went from having 46 scholarship participants, 43 scholarship participants to 86 scholarship participants. So
Fantastic.
double. And one that I'm a big fan of, because I used to be a cross-country skier, is the Kickers and Gliders program, which is the UOP, Utah Olympic Park. And 2 years ago, they had 0 Latino participants. Last year they had 11, and this year they're gonna have 17. So increased participation is really what we're going for, and inclusion. So that's what we're working on at the Park City Community Foundation.
Well, you're doing good work, and again, I encourage my listeners and my viewers to check out a little bit more information. Where can they find out the most information about the Solomon Fund and/or you and all the good work that you do?
So the Solomon Fund is an initiative of the Park City Community Foundation. So if you go to the Park City Community Foundation's website, www.parkcitycf.org, there you will find more information. And if people want to have practice their Spanish skills, they can also check out our Facebook page, the Solomon Fund, and find the different opportunities that we post there.
Perfect. We got to take a quick break, Sarah. Thanks so much for all you're doing. Thanks for being on the show today.
It.
We're going to take a quick break. Keep the station right there. We'll be right back with Cheryl Fox. Welcome back to the Impact and Influence Show. My second guest, Cheryl Fox. She is the Executive Director of the Summit Land Conservancy. So good to have her on the show today. And she brought wild hops. This is the first time I've ever had that on the show. This is really crazy, and really, it's very exciting. So we're going to get to that and talk about why she brought those here today. But first, talk about Summit Land Conservancy. I know you've done that for a long time now. You've done a really good job. If you're from Park City or Summit County, or even the surrounding region, you've heard about this organization. Talk about its mission. How did you get started, and what are you all about?
Well, I hope people have heard about us. Basically, the Summit Land Conservancy saves open space in Park City, Summit County, and now we're looking at, helping out farmers and ranchers on the sort of greater watershed. So the Weber River and the Provo, which are started in Summit County and then flow out to the cities of the Wasatch Front. And those provide about 2/3 of the drinking water for the Wasatch Front. So what we do here in Summit County affects everybody downstream. So, and we work with our communities, the local governments, to save the open spaces that are so important to our quality of life here in Park City, but also to our resort economy. Because people aren't going to come here if it looks like where they left, right? So
that's why they come to Park
that's
City.
Why they come, and they want to
Exactly.
recreate in the outdoors. And what's different about Park City compared to other ski resort and resort areas is that our hills and the surrounding and our ski resorts are on privately held land, which means, and the others are on Forest Service land. So on the Forest Service land, if you can get permits from the Forest Service and you can cut trails and things like that. But private land is different because those landowners have the right to build condos and roads and houses and all kinds of things. So if we want to maintain the open spaces that we have here, we really have to work with landowners and figure out ways that are equitable for all parties in order to preserve some of the open spaces and natural environment that we all love.
Yeah, so you've already mentioned a couple of reasons, but why is this so important? Not just for us at Park City, again, in Summit County, but for this whole region, for the state of Utah. Why is it so important that we save land?
You know, there's something called eco services. Yeah, environmental services. And these are the natural processes that the earth has that keeps us balanced, it keeps us cool, it brings in the snow. For example, when the snow comes in and falls on the mountains, that works as a reservoir to hold water, and as it slowly melts over the course of the spring, hopefully slowly melts, then it fills the reservoirs that we've built, and then we can drink it over time. But if we change our environment such that the moisture comes as rain, then it runs off much faster. That creates turbidity in the water. It means the water quality that we're trying to drink has to be filtered, and that's expensive. So if we can keep more land in natural states, then it actually serves us. And also, people may have noticed there are cows now on the McPolin farm.
Exactly. That's been something that
yes.
is getting a lot of people's attention.
It's getting a lot of attention. You know, years ago, the way cattle were being raised and the way they were being put on public land was detrimental to a lot of the processes that the natural lands can do. But cattle can be used differently, and that's what's happening on the McPolin farm. These cattle are not being left to free range wherever they want. They're tightly controlled, and what that means is then, normally if they're left to free range, they'll eat their favorite foods, like all of us, right? Oh, I'll eat the ice cream and then more ice cream. But if they're controlled, as they are on the McPolin farm, we are actually warning people that they are surrounded by an electric fence. So don't touch it, and don't let your dogs touch it, don't let your kids touch it. It won't kill you, but it'll be a little
shock in there.
You'll feel it.
That's a good warning, a public warning statement right there.
It'll be shocking. But what happens is by containing these cattle in a really tight area, they eat everything, and that's what we want them to do. We want them to eat it down, eat the weeds, eat the good things. Then we can kind of see the lay of the land, and then also they fertilize naturally that plot of land, and then we move them to the next piece. So the next step is then we're going to cover that all, Bill White, with a seed mix that will enhance the soils, and you know how some plants can put nutrients back into the soils, and the whole point of this is to build the system of microorganisms that exist in the soil, because there's bacteria and fungi and everything down there, and they are, like us, carbon-based organisms, and the more of them that are down there, the more the soil pulls carbon out of the atmosphere, but also holds water better, so you get a better balance of the plants that will grow. And I think that next summer we'll see a really different look out there on the farm, and it is beautiful. It will be beautiful.
I hate to take a break, but I want to get back because you've brought up some really good points. She has a lot of information, as you could tell, but we're going to take a quick break. Keep it right there on Park City Television, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the Impact and Influence Show. We cut it off there where you could tell Cheryl has done a lot of research on this. She's done this for a long time. She has a lot of passion for what she does. And before we get to the hops again, I want to ask you a question I know is kind of a contentious issue. You know, there's some people on the side of we've got to get more affordable housing for people in Park City because housing just continues to rise in cost. At the same time, I think most people say we do want to save land. We want to preserve this wonderful environment we have at Park City. How do we do both well? How do you navigate through that conversation?
That's a great question, and I'm really glad you brought that up because we have to do both. The thing that I love about protecting open space is it's for everybody, the land that we protect. It doesn't matter how much the size of your house or wherever, everybody can go to Round Valley. Everybody can go to these open spaces that we protect. So there's that sort of democratic or open aspect to open space. And we have to protect it we need a healthy environment for humans to live in. I say that we're protecting human habitat, and we also need it for our own restoration, mental health, whether that's for exercise or just going out when you need solace or a little bit of quiet time. So we have to do both. The thing that I think is interesting about this question is when the community needs something new, and this is not just Park City, this is everywhere. When we need something new, we tend to look around for a piece of land that isn't being used for a building. And then we say, okay, we'll put our bus barn there, or our housing there, or our, power transfer station there, instead of saying, and so what that ends up doing is it ruins the human habitat, because our habitat is not concrete and computer screens. Our habitat is green space. So what we need to do is look at redevelopment and maybe more density in the core, going a little bit higher. I think,
Which I know is controversial too.
I know it's controversial too, but if we don't look at some other models of land use. I mean, look at Europe, right? They get it, that if they don't save the farms, they don't have food. So you have to save the green spaces around the communities for agriculture, but also for, people's health and well-being. So we just have to look at our land use a little bit differently. And I think all of our elementary schools are one story. Why is that? You could put more school upstairs. You could put teacher housing upstairs. All of our shopping, our grocery stores, one story. We could add another level up there and house a lot of people. So I just think that if we look at our current land use a little bit differently, and also, there are a lot of homes sitting empty in Park Meadows, and they're large, and you could make them duplexes and put 2 families right there. So I think that there's a lot of options if we get a little bit creative with it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your approach to that, and I know you've had some ongoing conversations, and there'll be more ongoing conversations.
It's all good. I mean, we really do have to do both.
And that's it. I think we have to do both.
Yeah.
Okay, wild hops. You brought them here. Tell us about this. Why you've been harvesting this morning, I understand.
Yes.
So talk about this a bit.
So,
this is really cool to have here.
These are hops, and they grow on, it looks like a vine, but it's actually a bine with a bee. And it's called a bine because of how it fixes itself to its environment.
And it's very fragrant.
It smells really good.
Yeah.
And these are the cones, and what happens is we pull these cones off like that, and we put them in these big bins, and then the Wasatch Brew Pub puts them in the vat, and they become beer.
Okay.
They flavor the beer. These plants were generally planted by the miners 100 years ago because they were making beer also.
So these are not native per se. They were brought here.
They were all brought here, but they thrive.
Okay.
And so, it's a perennial plant. They grow year after year. And so we take people out for hikes on open spaces that are protected around Park City. And it's sort of something we go and we look and we literally watch them grow over the summer. So, if you come out in the spring with us in June, you'll see these little plants and they've got a few leaves. And then, later on in the year, they're huge. They grow way up high, and they produce these cones. And so it's kind of a fun way for us to share the outdoors with people, and we like to say, drink beer, save land.
There's probably a lot of people that like that.
That's right.
It's a good
it's all good. So we make the Wasatch Brew Pub is really generous and supports us in this, and they make this beer, and it's called Clothing Hoptional, which is a little bit
That's
of a
pretty funny.
Clothing optional, yes.
That's great.
So people can go to the Wasatch Brew Pub. They don't put it in cans, but you can get it in. They call them crowlers, and then growlers if you want to take it away. And so it's kind of a great, and then we will have a party to celebrate all of this on September 29th. We call it Hoppy Hour. We're into the puns.
You're really into it. You got so many of them. Well, you're doing great work. Again, how can people find out more information about Summit Land Conservancy?
WeSaveLand.org.
Okay, that's so good. WeSaveLand.org. It's easy to find. Cheryl, thank you so much for all you're doing, and thanks for all that you do to really preserve land and care for our environment. Really, really appreciate all your good work.
Thanks for all you do too, Rob.
Thank you so much. You bet. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show. Welcome back to the Impact and Influence Show. One of the things I love the most about this show is to be able to introduce you, the viewers, to some great people and great organizations doing some really wonderful work here in Park City, Summit Community, and throughout the region. So just a couple of things. If you want to find out a little bit more information about the Solomon Fund, go to the Park City Foundation website. They're doing some great work with sports and recreation right here locally in Park City and Summit County, of course. And then Summit Land Conservancy. That's an issue that you'll read about in the paper quite a bit. And not just in Park City, but even in Salt Lake and throughout the state. This is an issue we need to continue to wrap our heads around. I love what Cheryl does. Check out more information on our website, Summit Land Conservancy. And again, if you're watching this and you want to be on the show, by the way, you feel like what you're doing in your community is really making a difference, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Love to get you on the show. Every Friday, 10:30s, Park City Television. You can also go online, parkcitytelevision.com. We'd love to have you following this show. Well, that's all for today. But until next time, keep making your world better.